Welcome back to episode number 2 of Evel Kings. Today we're going to continue our great interview we did when we sat down in Pennsylvania recently with Vince Ream, the 7-inch Daredevil, and his lovely wife Judy. What goes on behind the scenes of creating this legend and how he started this hobby way back in the early 2000s. We're also going to break down 10 tips or more that can help you jump your California Creations bike even farther so that you can compete against all your friends, your buddies, maybe even your grandkids. Let's get started. Tip number 1, make sure when you have a runway, you get it perfectly level. Get out your plumb bob, get out your level, make sure it's perfectly level so the bike tends to fly straight. So in Vince's case, he uses panels that are about 24 inches wide by 44 inches long. They can collapse down and fit in the back of most trunks. They're joined together with zip ties, and intermittently on the journey to the ramp, he's added grip tape so you can build up traction incrementally, which is an important thing. If you have it just all grip tape, the bike will tend to lose distance because it will grab, it will wheelie, and it will sacrifice distance. So, as you see here, let's get that thing nice and wide, put some incremental grip tape on that, and you're gonna have Evel heading in the right direction to start with. Another great tip that Vince uses to help build traction in a controlled way is he sprays Windex throughout the launch area just past the Energizer. This helps with a little bit of wheel slippage so that as it takes off, it doesn't want to wheelie and it builds into its traction gradually, which is how you get the amazing jumps that Vince pulls off. This next one's crucial because it's the last thing that the bike touches before it leaves to go on its journey in the air, hopefully to world record distance. Now, when we're talking about the launch ramp, we don't want to have it just a straight launch ramp. And you'll notice when you look at Vince's, it has a little bit of a curve to it. And we're going to get into that in a second. The launch ramp varies in height from 12 to 24 inches, depending on the distance you're trying to go. Another thing that's crucial, and it's measured with a little measuring device for angle, is that we need to have the launch angle somewhere between 37 to 45 degrees. This allows the bike to take off at the appropriate angle and maximizes your distance. Another thing that we touched on was the bounce. Now, like in a motorcycle jump that you see on the X Games, the suspension takes the collision with the ramp and then helps launch the bike. Now, we've done that and recreated that as Vince has created a bounce into his ramp. So as you can see, he's got a support underneath the main ramp that will allow some give to the ramp that will return the energy back to the bike. This really helps with distance. Now, when we talk about the landing ramp, it's important to sort of mirror what you're doing with the takeoff ramp. 24 inches wide, which allows you to match the takeoff ramp and the runway, and the height will vary from 12 to 20 inches, somewhere in there, depending on how high you're going to go with your takeoff ramp. Now, some other considerations with the landing ramp is to make sure beyond it you put a catch fence, so you're not always having to chase your bike 30 feet down the road as it continues on. And probably one of the greatest keys to gaining depth when you're jumping these bikes is this next tip that Vince basically pioneered. In the new California Creations, what he's done is he's drilled some holes in the sides to provide places where you can put some gear oil in there, machine oil, lightweight oil to help keep the gears and everything lubricated. Sometimes those things can wear out the plastic, and if you keep it lubed up, you're going to get greater distance. And to also help with the friction and the heat buildup in the plastic, he can take apart his bike and put in little tiny bushings, little brass bushings, so when that gyro is spinning, it's not eating away at the plastic, and you can spend the whole day jumping without worrying about using up your bike. All right, this next tip's important to help with the longevity of your California Creations bike. Never stop the rear wheel when it's spinning abruptly. You'll strip the plastic gears in there. What Vince loves to do is put a little 4x4 inch patch of grip tape near the takeoff or near the Energizer, and as the bike runs out of energy, he'll run the back tire back and forth across there to help remove any impurities in the bike wheel, and this will help with the grip later without stripping your gears. The key to getting a straight jump, besides having a bike that's been optimized to follow straight lines pretty well, which we'll talk about in upcoming videos, is to make sure, as you see Vince doing here, you butt the front edge of the Energizer right up to your runway. This starts the bike squarely and gives you the best chance to have it hit the takeoff ramp in the middle and land on the landing ramp. So butt the Energizer up, and if you need to move it left or right a little bit, you can do that to help it hit where you want. But start it off square will help with your results later. This next tip is learn how to take apart the Energizer and how to take apart the California Creations bike. They've made it very easy with several screws, and you can put it back together with zip ties or screws, however you want to do it. But get comfortable with taking them apart. That way you can lube internally. And the Energizer needs to be lubed as well. So take that apart and put the proper plastic grease in there so that thing will spin like crazy. That's going to help with your distance. Now, we all know when we jump these bikes, Evel can go all over the place, elbows and rear ends flying off the bike, and it makes for great footage seeing him crash. But if you want to keep him on it a little better, you can take some black hockey tape and put it on the handlebar grip area, and when he puts his hands on it, he'll be stuck on there. He'll stay on there, and it'd be much better to get to your next jump quicker so you're not always putting them on after every single jump. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road, literally. You need to make sure that as you're cranking this up, you gradually ease into it before you get to what Cameron Gubert calls the hyper cranking, where you really rip it here as you see with Vince. So don't start cranking it hard to begin with. Ease into it till you get to your max acceleration. So I hope all these tips will help you jump farther with your bike. If you have tips that you use to help with your success, throw them in the comments below. But I think this will give you a good start on becoming an Evel Knievel legend, like Vince Ream, the 7-inch Daredevil.
That's unbelievable. I can't believe how far this thing goes.
Woo! Yeah!
That is the farthest any crank cycle has ever jumped. Give it up, Mitchell, South Dakota. You did it, Vince. You're the man. Live on YouTube.
The following year, we had like Kids Day, where I brought a bunch of those used toys that weren't collectible, but they were presentable.
Yeah.
And I was letting all the kids just come up, try it out, jump, run the cars,
Grow
whatever.
the hobby, grow the hobby.
And she brought her grandchildren up and let them play. And we had a nice conversation. And I thought it was funny because she goes, I don't remember that toy. I never remembered that toy.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of the toys that she never knew they produced in his likeness. And very, very gracious woman and awesome, just an awesome human being.
We'll get back to Robbie Knievel in a second, but I want to interject a question about performance anxiety. So, you know, I used to stop pucks for a living, and it's nerve-wracking when you're in front of 18,000 people and a crowd. And you've performed in front of some great crowds at these bike rallies and competitions. And there's pressure to perform, like it has to happen. And how do you manage that pressure? You know you can do it, but it's a different thing when we're at a church parking lot like today when it doesn't matter. When you got a bunch of people there to watch a 7-inch Daredevil, how do you manage your nerves performing in front of people?
Well, from the very first show I did to the many that came after that, is totally night and day. My first official show was at the Harley-Davidson Museum in 2010.
No pressure, no pressure, just a Harley-Davidson.
Yeah, it was my very first one in front of a group of people, but I didn't realize how large that group of people was going to be.
What do you figure it was?
There was thousands there.
Oh, geez.
It was bike night. And when they introduced me to come out, I came out of Bill Davidson's office on the backside. And I had a scramble van, and I took it and I gave her a fling across the ground. And no one could see me because I was around the corner. Well, that van come out and it stopped perfectly right at the runway.
Nailed it.
He arrived. And they introduced me and I walk out and I was just, oh my God. That's all I could see. It was people.
Heart going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, it was awful. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to screw this up. And thankfully, I didn't have to talk a lot at that point because, what am I going to say? And always in the back of my head, and I had a lot of people at the beginning when I was doing this, when I would post videos online and stuff, you'd get these people that would go, "You're a grown man. Why are you playing with a toy?" It's not playing with a toy.
They missed the whole point.
Yeah, there's, I'm having interactions with my grandchildren. I'm having interactions with my friends. It's just a fun time.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, we can do things now as adults that we couldn't do when we were kids.
Right.
We could never wind that thing fast enough to jump a car or whatever, it's just whatever.
And there's worse hobbies you could get into.
So anyhow, in my head, the whole time this is going on, all right, all I can feel is my heart beating hard. And it's like in my neck, and I'm looking at these bikers, and some of them just look
Tough.
rough.
Pretty tough.
Yeah. I thought, here we go. When this is over, I'm going to hear it. Baby boy playing with these toys, and stuff like that. So anyhow, they had, I think it was 8 or 9 Harley Davidsons lined up, brand new. And I had to jump them. And I did it successfully. And prior to that, I had run a funny car and a dragster, like warming them up like Evel did with stuff.
Getting
A
them
couple
stirred
run-bys with wheelies and things, and then the jump came. Because if you just do the jump, it's over like that.
Got to build up the pressure.
You have to do something. So when that was all said and done, you wouldn't believe it, the reaction. They were screaming, hollering, hooting.
Loved it.
They're
right? Kids at heart too.
And these bikers are up there, they're getting on their knees and they're taking pictures of the toys and stuff. And I had this one fella come up in leathers, and it looked like he just had worked on his Harley. He was dirty. And he comes up and smiles, no teeth. And he goes, "That was the greatest thing I ever seen." And he goes, "I had one as a kid." And he just loved it. And it's at that point, I'm like, you know what? I don't care what anybody else thinks. Yeah. They loved it. And of course, not everybody's going to. That's just the way life is.
And that's the way the world. That's the way the world works. We were talking previously about some of the family members that you've met in the Evel Knievel family, with Evel, his wife. Can you tell me about any times you've had a chance to meet Robbie, who did some pretty amazing stuff on the bike? Like, it was amazing some of the stuff he did.
Yeah, Robbie, I met him briefly at Evel Knievel days. He wasn't performing at the time. I don't have anything bad to say about Rob, but Rob just didn't seem to want to interact with the people. I went to Kings Island when he jumped the Coke trucks, and I was a VIP there, got to meet Dan Haggerty, Grizzly Adams, got pictures with him and stuff like that. Robbie did not make himself accessible for it. We did have, there was a birthday party for him after the jump, and he never showed up to it. And Linda was there, and Linda had to come in and apologize that he don't want to come out.
I think it's hard to say because we don't live in other people's shoes, but when you've got a famous father and the pressure of that, and all the dynamics we don't see going on behind the scenes and being in front of people, like when you're in the NHL, 8 million people want your autograph, you sign it, and they sell it on eBay, and so sometimes those types of celebrities get jaundiced after a while of dealing with it. And maybe it was that, or maybe you just had a bad day. But if you had to pick one jump that Robbie Knievel did, what would you say would be your favorite jump that Robbie did?
Oh, that 30 limo jump.
That
was crazy far.
Insane.
And the ramps that he was using are nothing like, they were better than Evel's, but they're nothing like they use now. And he had to have been going well over 100 mile an hour when he hit that.
Jeez.
And he just planted it. Like, it was perfect. It was the most perfect jump I had ever seen him.
Right on the button.
Yeah, it was just crazy how he pulled that off. And I would say that was a pretty special jump there. Of course, the Coke jumps to honor his father after his father had passed away. He jumped at Kings Island, almost in the same parking lot, same area where Evel had jumped the Greyhounds. Robbie jumped, I think there was 24, he landed on 23 on the safety deck, and the bike compressed and flung up, and his feet came off. And if you know anything about motorcycle jumping, you flat land like that at that speed, typically you go over the handlebars. And he somehow held on to it. Got his feet back on the pegs, rode her out, and come back up. So I'm sure he was in some pain after that one, because that was a hard hit. Like, you could hear it, and it almost felt like it went through your body when that bike, because it cased, the whole bottom of the bike cased. And
I saw a jump by, there's a lot of imitators. And there was a guy named Danny Ford, came to a local track in Delaware, Ontario, lined up 2 school buses lengthwise on a little quarter-mile track. So he didn't have a lot of runway. He had to come around the curve, up the banking, and hit it. And there was some type of electrical cable that the track owner said, I am not moving that wire no matter what. So he took the takeoff ramp and he brought it up on a higher angle. And didn't, back then, their calculations were sort of like,
yeah.
Well, if this guy doesn't do what you just said, he went way too high, way too far, landed flat, boom, like that, hand off the handlebars, and the wheels were like eggs, and off the back he goes, and broken back and all that. The one that I remember from just the sheer audacity of it was when he cut the corner on that Grand Canyon, when he went across, or Snake, the one where he went over the canyon off the side of it, where if he dropped, he would have went way down. Right. That was insane. I wanted to ask you about a couple of people that are in this hobby as well. Porter Howell and Cam Gruber, 2 guys that you've really helped out. They do some great jumps, and I love seeing what they put out there. And can you tell me how you met Porter Howell, who, he's kind of one of those guys that you might know of, a singer in Little Texas. Now he's jumping crazy. He's going crazy on TikTok, jumping out of windows. He's crazy how far he can jump. Now, how did you meet Porter Howell?
Well, initially, I didn't put the name Porter Howell with Little Texas for a while. Like, he was contacting me. I was giving him tips. He contacted me, can you get me parts? I need gears, I'm stripping gears and stuff. So yeah, and ship him gears and stuff. And one day, I finally really looked at his profile picture, and I seen he had a guitar in his hand. And I'm looking at that, and I'm like, no. Because I was a Little Texas fan from way back.
Dan it done.
And I did a quick look, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that was him. So we get to talking again, through Messenger, and I said, hey, are you Porter Howell of Little Texas? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I never know. Who knows who I am anymore?
Pretty humble guy.
Yeah,
Humble.
Porter is so down to earth, and he's approachable, and he is fun.
Yeah.
Like, he is, when he sets his mind to something,
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. Yeah, it is. It's gonna happen. And I've been to his house a few times, and we've done jumps. That's all we did all day long. Jump, just trying different things out and whatnot, and comparing notes, and we just had a great time. And I had quadruple bypass a couple years ago, 3 years ago. And a few months after that, we went to Tennessee to his house to do some jumps. And hot. It was like 90 plus degrees out, humid as hell, and we're both soaked, but we're still going at it. And I'm dragging from it. And finally he says, we need to go into the air conditioning because I'm fixing to have my first heart attack and you're second, right? And I about died, like right there. He's funny. He's a special guy. He really is. And he's great. He is very good. Anytime I got to go into a competition against Porter, I got to be on my A game because he's gonna snatch it. Like, he's that good. But Porter just jumps every day, it seems like, and he is notorious for setting his ramps and just leaving them there. He doesn't move them, and when he gets free time, he's out jumping, and he's probably the premier jumper right now.
Well, you're Yoda. He's Luke Skywalker, so you gave him the Force. Now he has the Force, and
yeah.
I think that brings up the great point. Is one of the best things about this hobby is meeting other people and bringing people into the hobby and creating new friends all over the world. And it's awesome to see these competitions in good-natured jump. And I think that's, I firmly think that one of these upcoming jumping contests, they should put it on ESPN Ocho. And if you can have cornhole competitions and you can have, some of the goofy stuff they put on there, this belongs on there. This is, I try to describe it to my wife. I said, this is a lot like Tiger King for cool people. And I hope to see it sometime on a show. And I think we'll wrap it up by just saying, it was a pleasure to meet you. I'm going to chat with your wife briefly here to get some inside dope on you.
Oh, no.
Find out what she really thinks of you. And she's obviously a saint for putting up with you. But I really had taken a weekend to spend time with some old goofy Canadian with a bad accent. And it was a pleasure meeting you. And I'm sure we'll be jumping together a lot in the future. And
You're my favorite hoser now.
Am I the only guy you know from Canada? All right, Vince, we'll talk to you later. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, thank you.
Awesome. I called my wife the wrong name once, and apparently she didn't like that. So Judy Ream, is that the correct name?
Yes.
You're married to this Daredevil. At least he's not coming home with broken arms and broken legs. Like, you're probably a little more ahead of the game than somebody that's actually on a bike jumping over real buses. But it's still entertaining. What do you think of the hobby generally?
I love that he has a hobby, and I love this toy. I really enjoy seeing the enjoyment that he gets out of this, and I want him to have something that he has passion about. I like the passion.
And I think you see that in him, and you see that he's not keeping it inside. He uses it with grandkids, he gives it to other people, his knowledge. And that type of thing, keeps us all young at heart. And, there's way worse things us husbands could be out doing, monkeying around in the garage, ripping apart a bike, putting it back together and jumping and doing stuff. My wife kind of chuckles at me, wonders how old I am, but I agree. She would say the same thing. It's a good hobby to have. Now, he may get performance anxiety when he's jumping in front of a bunch of people. Like when my wife used to watch me play games, she'd be moving around and nervous and wondering if I'm going to play bad, feeling it for me. Do you ever get emotional, your neurons firing, like wondering if he's going to screw up or land a jump in front of all these people? Does it affect you? Does it make you nervous?
I'm not ever really nervous about what he's doing. I like whenever he succeeds because I can see it. The thing that causes me anxiety is his ramps, and people don't understand that if they step on them, they bend them, which ultimately affects what's happening when he's jumping, and I oftentimes have to police the ramp. That gives me anxiety.
So you're sort of like his bodyguard, making sure nobody messes with his setup.
Yes.
So do you use a bat, or you just come up there and just give him a stern look? Or tell them?
I will just go over to people and say to them, get off the ramps.
Right, and I think a lot of times these locations where they're setting them up, they should have more respect for it. I don't think they understand what's going into it, and you know how oblivious the average person is when you even drive on the road. You see how people are driving. It wouldn't shock me somebody to walk right across these beautifully done ramps. And as Vince and I know very well, these runways and ramps have to be very precise and very level for that toy to fly perfectly straight. And if somebody messes with it, it's going to be a problem. Now, you've been with him a while and you've seen all the jumping he's done. If you had to pick one event that he did that you're the most proud of, what would you say that is?
I would say when we were in Butte, Montana, and we jumped in the courthouse.
That's amazing.
The building itself is beautiful, and the ability to shoot down with my feeble camera skills.
Oh no, great. That's how I found him. Was your camera skills is how I found him, and I love the one where you were driving the garden tractor and he was trying to jump it into the back of the bed of the tailgate on that. So you do great. You did a great job with that. So that was a good one in Butte. So was it well set up, well organized event?
It was. I did enjoy that one a lot. I also enjoy whenever we pretend that we're doing announcements, and I am the voice of Derry Daring, and we've worked with Bob.
You're
Gill.
married to Derry Daring. We got to get her jump in the butt. We got to get her jump in the pink one. We'll do the Ream show. That's great.
Cam calls us the Ream team.
The Ream team. That's Cam's a smart guy.
Yes, he
now, you know, I didn't ask him this because I wanted to save it for you. He went on and did the pre-production for America's Got Talent. Now, you got to think, you're with all these celebrities and they're famous people around, and you're flying here, flying there, and you're wearing the big white leather stuff. That's got to be nerve-wracking to try to pull that all together.
It's not.
No?
I just help him. If he says to me, I need to do this, I will just pick up whatever he needs done and help him, because he also will do the same for me whenever I'm working on whatever I am working on. He will step right up and help me as well. We are a good team.
That's awesome.
And we are very supportive of one another, and I would do anything. I got out of bed that morning at 4:30 and drove him to the airport, ran back home, changed my clothes, and went to work all day.
Just another day. Hollywood celebrity on one hand, you're home doing a real job. That's what it's like being married to a celebrity. I think the Porter's onto something with TikTok, because, you know, you get 1 million views with those cool jumps. I think are something that's going to help grow the hobby. You know, when you and we were all kids, I don't know, in the United States, we got the Sears catalog for the Christmas wish book. It would come, it would be about that. We get the big catalog. We go to the toy section, and I circle, I want the Sky Cycle, I want the Scramble Van, I want this, I want that, and then you give it, and lo and behold, Santa Claus would show up there Christmas morning and bring you what you circled. But I don't think kids today even get catalogs anymore. It's all online. So I think that's likely where we got to go, is pump the stuff like we're doing here online so kids can see it and put these cool jumps out there. And that's why I think we got to do a better job of getting Vince's amazing jumps so everybody can see them. That's what I think needs to happen, and I think the kids will pick up the toys that way and enjoy the same hobby we do. I want to apologize for stealing your husband for this weekend, and he could be home cutting grass and doing stuff, helping you out. Here he's out farting around with me, playing with toys, but I just wanted to thank you for loaning me your husband for the weekend, and it was a pleasure to meet you, Judy.
Thank